If your goal is to create engaging user experiences across multiple devices, then you need to pay close attention to what those devices can do. In many ways, embracing responsive design requires us to rethink how we've designed sites in the past and re-examine how people might want to use and interact with our site's content. If you own a smartphone or tablet, you probably already have a good idea as to what they're capable of. In fact, I'm betting that by now, you're accustomed to using apps or sites that blend together features like cameras, location detection, and messaging into one seamless experience. Well, if you're accustomed to it, your users probably are as well. Now, there's currently an ongoing debate about whether apps or websites are the future of the web, but I think that argument misses a very important point. For the most part, users don't care. All they really care about is that your site delivers the experience they expect, and since they're being conditioned to expect integrated, feature-rich interactions, you need to understand what mobile devices are capable of and how to use those features within your responsive design. And with that in mind, let's take a look at some of the more prominent features of mobile devices. The very term mobile suggests a device that's portable and allows users to access content anywhere they happen to be. So it makes sense that most mobile devices have some form of location detection that allows you to determine exactly where the user is and respond accordingly. Many handheld mobile devices also support motion detection in the form of accelerometers. This allows you to respond to motion, hand position, and screen tilt. Often, this is accompanied by a built-in compass, which also allows you to precisely target device direction. Another common feature involves audio and media, as devices have microphones, speakers, and cameras, which allow you to record pictures, video, and audio, or access the user's media library. It's also very common for these devices to have touch screens, which allow your sites to respond to touch events and gestures. One of the most overlooked features of mobile devices is the phone itself. Phone capabilities, messaging, and push notification services allow you to give users multiple options to connect with and communicate through your site. While this isn't a complete list of all mobile device features, it does illustrate the fact that if we're planning for our sites to reach across media and devices, we need to start designing towards those mobile capabilities. And the first step is to carefully consider whether taking advantage of these features is appropriate or not given the goals of your site. And think about how users might anticipate interacting with your content, or what their expectations might be. Now remember, just because you can doesn't mean that you should. Next, you'll have to consider how these features will affect your page structure and design for larger screen sizes. How will that functionality be replaced or represented on desktops? Will you have to hide large portions of your interface, or are there ways to make the same content behave in a different way based on where it's being viewed? Now, these are not easy questions, but it's necessary that you think through how these features will scale in a responsive design. Unlike building an application, where you can focus on just one user experience, responsive design forces you to consider functionality across multiple contexts. And often this means trade-offs are involved, and many decisions will be judgment calls based on what you feel will be more effective. Now, of course, some of these features are a little easier to implement than others. To create a phone number that users can touch to call, all that's really required is you mark up the phone number in an anchor tag using the telephone URL scheme. You can then hide the link on desktops using CSS, since desktop browsers don't really support it. Other features, like location detection, involve using JavaScript APIs like geolocation to capture and respond to data. While these APIs make it easy for anyone with moderate scripting skills to take advantage of them, they require a bit more skill and planning to implement properly. Now, one thing that can help is taking advantage of the Modernizer JavaScript library. Modernizer helps you detect support for things like geolocation and touch events, and then manage resources and scripting based on support. Since it also allows you to test against media queries, it's a great way to add that type of functionality responsively. And unfortunately, it's not always that simple. Things can get much trickier if you're attempting to use native device features such as cameras or audio. Now, often these features require you to use a third-party framework to bridge that gap between the phone and your site. At that point, you begin to move away from building responsive designs to building applications. So you should carefully consider the features that you want to use and then research what's required to add that functionality. Once you understand what's involved in implementing it, you'll be better prepared to decide if it's in fact right for your design. Regardless of what you decide, never lose sight of the fact that it's ultimately about the user. Remember that they are likely to have certain expectations about what they can do with your content on mobile, yet they're also likely to visit your site on desktops as well. You want to make the transition between experiencing the site on mobile and desktop as seamless as possible. This doesn't mean that the site has to function exactly the same within each context, but that you should think about what's appropriate in each case and then strike a balance based on what's possible.